You've probably heard this advice before. It goes something like, post every day, just keep producing, stay consistent, or feed the algorithm. And if you're not doing this, maybe you've fallen into the trap of thinking that you're failing as a photographer. But here's the thing. Photography was never supposed to be about productivity. And in fact, the more we treat photography like a productivity system, often the worse the experience that we have. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about how in the world of photography, we seem to have adopted the grind culture that is so pervasive everywhere else in our lives. Somewhere along the line, photography stopped being about paying attention and started being about producing. If you spend any time in photography spaces online, you've no doubt seen the same advice. Be consistent, stay visible, and keep producing. And while none of this is technically bad advice, I do believe it comes from a place that photography was not originally built for. And that's the mindset of productivity culture, where success and progress are measured by output. But for many of us, photography is not about output, it's about paying attention. And quite frankly, if you're anything like me, attention does not thrive under pressure. I was thinking about this recently when reading this book by Cal Newport called Slow Productivity. The core idea here is pretty simple. In many areas of our life, the constant pressure to produce more and more often leads to actually a worse product. Instead, Newport argues for a system that he calls slow productivity, doing fewer things by working at a natural pace, but focusing and obsessing over quality as opposed to constant output. And when I first read this, it really resonated with me because this is exactly how I see my practice of photography. When everything becomes about producing more images, something subtle starts to disappear, and that's your curiosity and your patience. These are the quiet moments where photography actually happens. You stop asking yourself a question like, what am I noticing right now? And start asking yourself a question like, how can I post this, or how can I turn it into content? That shift might be small, but it changes the entire experience of photography. You go from a mindset of wandering and observing to trying to search and find content. And instead of paying attention, you start wondering about performance. And when that happens, your photography can start to feel like work. The strange thing is photography was never meant to be efficient. Some of the best photographs come from just wandering and paying attention. When you're walking between two destinations, or observing light change, or notice out of the corner of your eye, or with another one of your senses, a moment happening out on the street. Productivity culture doesn't seem to value spending time observing what's going on in the world around you. I think that's because wandering doesn't scale, or you can't optimize curiosity. And you certainly can't schedule a moment for something unexpected to catch your eye. But these are often the best moments that lead to the best photographs. This is where the idea of slow productivity actually makes sense for photography. Instead of trying to produce more images, maybe the goal should be to create more space between better ones. To take fewer photos, but to pay more attention. To walk more slowly, and to notice things that you otherwise might miss. Photography can be a practice, not a production line. It can be a way of paying attention, a way of reconnecting with the world around you, and maybe connecting with yourself on a deeper level. I'm actually really curious about this. Do you feel like photography has been something that you have to start producing more of, as opposed to exploring more? Or have you managed to avoid that feeling completely? I'm really interested to hear how others are experiencing this. Productivity culture asks a very simple question. What did you produce today? I think photography asks a very different one. What did you notice today? And in the long run, I think that's the more important question. If photography has ever started to feel overwhelming for you, it might be worth reminding yourself that the camera was never meant to rush you. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is just slow down.